Hey friends, welcome to the Johnson City Living Podcast, where we learn about the people, places, events, and flavors that make Johnson City just a lovely place to live. I'm your host, Colin Johnson, with the Colin and Carly Group and Keller Williams Realty. If you're interested in buying or selling a home in the area, or if you're looking at investing in a rental property, give us a call at 423-930-8003, and we will look forward to helping you. Now, let's get to today's episode. It is a hot but beautiful August day here in Johnson City, and kids are going back to school. It's the end of summer, I feel like, and times are changing in Johnson City, but the people are not. And we are bringing you another wonderful person from Johnson City. Welcome to the podcast, Miss Nancy Williams, my friend, my neighbor, an author, and a super cute dog lover. So how are you today?
Well, I'm doing great. Love
Awesome.
being here.
Well, thank you
Thanks for
so
having me.
much for being on the podcast. I know we tried to connect a few times and get you on here, but the wait has been worth it. I'm assured of it, and I'm sure the listeners are going to be excited to hear what you have to say about Johnson City. But first questions first, what do you love most about Johnson City?
I knew you were going to ask that question, so I started thinking about it, and I really have to say that it's the people here. I truly believe that we have a halo effect here in this community because of the people of faith who have lived here over the generations. I know so many new people have moved in. It's changing because of the dynamics and so forth of the influx. So it's kind of hard to find people that have grown up in this area. But we moved here in 1995.
Okay, so you've been here a little while.
Almost 30 years. And so I've kind of watched the growth over that span of time. But my husband is from here originally.
Gotcha.
And his dad was a preacher and got moved around different areas. He lived in Kingsport, and then Mark went to, by the way, I am married to Mr. Wonderful. He's the most wonderful husband in the whole world.
He seems like a really nice guy.
He is a pretty nice
guy. Or he's
guy.
Either a super nice guy or he's a good faker when I meet him, because he seems like he's very nice.
He's just a great guy.
Yeah.
And anyway, his dad was almost like a circuit rider type preacher and lived in different areas around here. But Mark, he was from East Tennessee. And so I thought, well, he's got potential because everybody who's ever lived here wants to move back. So, and at the time, this was in Memphis. So at any rate, there's just a wonderful group of people here. It's just one of the nicest, friendliest places that you could live. And you could say that about a lot of places in the South. But I think it's just really particularly true of this area. And
I think Memphis is special. My dad was born around Memphis, and I was too. And I think it was from when my memories of going back a lot, because my grandparents lived there. We left when I was young, but I loved it. It was great. The people were fantastic. And so I think, state as far away as you can be in the end on the state. I mean, the people are great all the way around. So, but yeah, Johnson City is just special. Tell me a little bit about you. So you said you met Mark in a Bible study. So you had a Christian upbringing and love the Lord too. So that's awesome.
Very much.
And so then to be yoked with your husband, that's just a huge blessing.
It is great. And we have a wonderful church family here at Westminster Presbyterian Church. It's a great place. Anybody that's listening that would like to come visit us, you can do it online first by going to YouTube and listening to some of the services that we have.
Yeah.
But we've got just a great church family there, I think, with a lot of good teaching and music and so forth. That's been, again, sort of an anchor for us in the community too. And that's been really nice.
Yeah, I think, you can throw a rock in Johnson City almost and hit a church, which is, I think, a reason that it's awesome. I tell people that we just love people, and we show it. We're not afraid to hide that. And so I go, but if you don't want to be a part of that, that's okay. But if you're a jerk, like, drive on kind of stuff. If you're nice, stay. But if you're a jerk, keep going.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Memphis.
Yes. I was just going to say, everybody in Memphis has some kind of an Elvis story.
Do you have one?
I grew up I grew up in the Mississippi Delta, which is Greenville, Mississippi. It's right on the river like Memphis is.
Yeah.
it's like living in a skillet.
Uh-huh.
Okay, hot and sticky.
Yes, I remember.
And Memphis is, a lot of the same thing, but I lived in Whitehaven where Elvis's house is. And everybody in Memphis has some kind of Elvis story. So I wrapped presents for him one Christmas.
Oh,
That was
that's
my
cool.
that was mine. But my aunt's locker was next to his, and my grandmother met him and so forth. So that's sort of the Memphis lore.
Aw.
But when I was little, my parents would take us to Chattanooga area for a family reunion, and then we'd come up to the Smokies and camp out. And I thought I'd just died and gone to heaven. So I was wanting to come to East Tennessee and live over here. I was thinking more of the Knoxville, Smokies area, but Mark was from this region up here, and I've just fallen in love with it. It's, when we moved in and we walked in the front door, I told Mark, I said, I'm home. You've moved me to a resort, and I'm just as happy as a clam here. This is.
Are these trees and mountains around all the time? Because it's beautiful.
Yes.
And Memphis is beautiful in its own right. But yes, it is like a resort. So, how did you get into like writing and studying and doing all the things around literature?
Well, I graduated from college with 2 degrees in French and history. So I already had that history background to things, but I wound up going to UT for an extra year and got plugged into the advertising program there. And then I came out and I worked for a couple of ad agencies in Memphis as a copywriter.
Oh, cool.
So I used to write commercials for, Dr. Pepper and First Tennessee Bank before it was First Horizon, and Terminix and Le Bonheur Hospital there. Just did a lot of writing on different things. It was fun. Coca-Cola. And then I went to work for FedEx and worked for them for 10 years in their corporate communications.
There are a few people in Memphis who work for FedEx.
Yeah, for a few people. So I actually had a fairly low employee number, which was nice. So, but by the time I left, there were like 150,000 employees around the world. So it was amazing.
That's unbelievable.
That was a real good experience. But I was a writer for them. So then we moved here, and I did some freelance public relations because that's what I had been doing some of. And I taught PR out at Milligan for almost 10 years. Enjoyed that. Loved my students out there. So while I was doing all that, and then COVID hit, of course, and they had to shut down. But I was having to retire about that time anyway, just to help take care of my mom and my husband's mom. And so during that time frame, I thought, I think I really want to write a book. And so I started thinking in terms of that. That was just one aspect that I had not done before. So I first wrote a devotional for women, especially for women who are experiencing infertility issues. And so it's a Christian devotional book. And then
that's cool.
I have a friend who's an author, and she's part of a publishing group. And she was part of this series of fairy tale novels. And so I said, if you ever need a writer, let me know. I'd love to do it. And she was like, yes, we're getting ready to start a series based in the 1940s. Well, bingo. My history thesis was on World War II.
Oh, wow.
And also, it had to have different parameters. It had to be a Christian book. It's for women, but I tried to write it with as much interest for men as possible. It had to be about based on a fairy tale plot, but it's set in the 1940s, and then it had to have a little romance and mystery and murder, whatever, mayhem in it. And I knew of this story that my father-in-law had told us. It was about a top secret mission in World War II called Project Hula. I found this out more later. He was not
like
aware.
It was a legit top secret mission.
Legitimate top secret.
So you're releasing top secrets on.
That's it.
Okay, just making
sure. However, it's
been declassified.
Declassified in the 1990s. So you can look it up on Wikipedia if you're interested. But it's called Project Hula, and what it involved was a transfer of naval warfare. What am I trying to say? Not aircraft, but watercraft, I suppose. Not as big as, say, aircraft carriers,
but
the smaller ones like destroyers and so forth. that were being transferred from the United States over to Russia to get them involved in the war, because as of early 1945, Stalin still had not declared war against Japan. So they were trying to get them armed up for a D-Day type invasion of Japan.
Gotcha.
So there was a base called Fort Randall in the Aleutian Islands that became the center for this transfer of ships, undercover, so to speak. And my father-in-law was in the Seabees. Now, they spell it Seabees.
I read that in here last night when I was reading through it. Yep.
But it stood for actually the initials CB, Construction Brigade, and they were part of the Marines. And my father-in-law was put in charge of the laundry. That was his job. So he had to do the laundry for the Russian officers. And he wound up befriending this young officer. And they figured out by talking together somehow, just using little translation books, that they were both Christians. And so Arnold and he would just kept up a little conversation for several weeks and would talk and chat and so forth. Then one day he didn't show up when Arnold was expecting him. And so he asked some of the other officers, well, what happened? Where is he? They said, oh, he's dead. And so they told him where his things were. Asked, well, where's he buried? And so Arnold went out on the beach and his clothing had just been thrown up in the dunes. And so Arnold picked it all up and brought it back with him. And in his clothing was a 1917 New Testament, which was published before the revolution. And so we think what happened is he may have been martyred for his faith because he was really carrying something that was contraband. So anyway, that's where the story starts.
Well, yeah, I read the prologue yesterday, and I was like, this is really good. And like the way it was written, I was like, I felt like I was on the beach watching this guy being drugged down the beach by these two Russian guys. And then the way you talked about his thought process, like how he wouldn't talk about his faith and how, he wasn't going to renounce it. They even gave him the option, but he said, he didn't. And at the end, I guess that was his demise. And so, I think he was martyred in the story. And I'm looking forward to reading the rest of it because I think it's just going to continue to get better and better. So, To Love a Falcon is the name of it. And, and I was just dealing with boats, and now you brought planes into it. And so you want to talk a little bit more about how it plays out a little bit? And it's cool is Arnie now becomes a fictional character.
Yes, he's not fictional, but
he's not.
In
but
there
in the story,
he starts the story out because I had to start with the murder and then kind of go from there. So actually, that part of the story, the prologue, is true.
Yeah.
Then the rest of it is historical fiction.
Gotcha.
So I took the premise, what if the Russian naval officer left a sweetheart back home, a fiancé, who doesn't know he's dead?
Mm-mm.
And if you've seen the movie Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, that's a cute little movie. But she's in the same conundrum in that her husband just sort of disappeared during the war and she never knew if he was living or dead. And so that's kind of what happened to so many people because there was no communication, there was no follow-up, there was just a lot of chaos, during the war. So the storyline proceeds with that, and it includes the introduction of the MiG-9, which was the first jet-powered aircraft produced by the Russians for combat.
Mm-hmm.
And the story progresses because through this, I had to find a Russian fairy tale to go along with this.
Oh.
So I based it on this one called Finist the Falcon, spelled Finist, Finist the Falcon. And it's an unfamiliar fairy tale to most people, but it's kind of a Cinderella-ish kind of story. And it's also in Wikipedia. So if anybody's interested, they can go look it up in Wikipedia and read about that, as well as Project Hula, just to get a little bit more background.
Yeah, I love it.
So that was the fairy tale that I chose on this. So it's the protagonists in the story are a female aircraft mechanic and a MiG test pilot. So I had a couple of things that helped me with this story. I've said it's a perfect storm for me because I love history. I'd studied Russian, Soviet government politics in college. I had studied Russian. We went to Siberia in 1999 to adopt our son, Alex.
How cool is that?
And so we have a Russian in our family.
That's awesome.
And then also my father-in-law, of course, I had his story. Alex is a pilot, so I could consult him on a lot of the aviation things.
That's cool.
And then I have good friends from Elizabeth and Keith and Willette Erickson. And Keith was a maintenance instructor for a number of years at Moody out there.
Oh, yeah.
So I could ask him about being an aircraft mechanic. And then I also knew another girl, good friend of mine named Beth, who is a former aircraft mechanic. So I could get her female perspective from things. So it was just very easy to sit down and go blip, blip, blip and get it
So you
done.
knocked it out in an afternoon kind of thing?
Just about. It was about 6 months. So
6 months.
It didn't take that long.
Yeah. I mean, I'm at awe of people who write novels and books. It's just, I think it looks from the start like very daunting, and bringing it all together and how it comes together wonderfully and the story culminates. It's just cool. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm excited to read it. Thank you for giving me a copy.
It's called To Love a Falcon. It is available on Amazon. If you want to show it up there. It's and so is my other book. And also anybody can go to my website, which is nancycwilliams.com.
Yeah.
And they can find
the copy right there.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me a little bit about Alex. This is a cool story, right?
It is a cool story.
So
it's a God story.
And we have an Alex too. You may have met him from China, and he's kind of our sort of adopted son, but he's not. He's got parents, but he was our foreign exchange student for a couple of years.
Oh, nice.
And he is a total God story. So anyway, I want to hear about your Alex and how did all that come about?
We went through infertility before and after the birth of our daughter Elizabeth. She's our daughter and beautiful, wonderful girl. And then we realized that we needed to just go ahead and adopt if we were going to have another child in our family. So we started looking around, and we went through an agency that was actually working through Russia. And we thought, okay, that would be a good place to go. We'll just work on that. So we went through, and they gave us Alex on a video and showed him to us from the orphanage and said, would you be interested in adopting him? And what was funny at the time was that he didn't say a word on the video. And we were a little concerned. Maybe he was, because it said on the paperwork that he was developmentally delayed. Well, apparently they put that on all the paperwork so that they can actually adopt them out. And so just by the grace of God, by the way that he orchestrated everything, we wound up accepting him. We're going to go over there. And then all of a sudden we had to wait 10 months because the judge over there decided to hold up all the paperwork. It's a long story, but we wound up going, our case went to Madeleine Albright with the State Department. Yeah. It went to the Russian Supreme Court. But she was waiting for this one piece of paperwork that nobody else was willing to give. Nobody was from the U.S. was willing to give, and she was not stopping, whereby Alex would become an American citizen in the Russian court as soon as he was adopted. And the Americans were saying, no, he has to be in the United States on American soil, et cetera, et cetera. A little back and forth. Because my fingerprints have been just pretty much washed off from the fact that I've been doing so much cooking and so forth over the years, I had an inside number to the INS director in Memphis. And this was 20-something years ago. And so I called him up and I said, hey, we've got to try to work this out. Nobody else is doing this. Can you work this out? And he's like, sure, just send me the paperwork. I'll do it. So we wound up being the first of 50 couples to go into this judge's court in Siberia. So we go to Siberia. Yeah. So that's another reason for
hopefully
putting
you went in the summer.
No, we were actually there when Lake Baikal was still frozen over and cars were driving across it. It was an amazing experience. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. But it was just very interesting being in the Russian court. There was a cage in the courtroom. I mean, you think like a gorilla cage there that supposedly is where, I guess, defendants sit. So it's very much a kind of a guilty until proven innocent type of court system.
Yes.
But we managed to
There's a reason it
survive.
has a like a big history in all the movies, right? Like,
Yes.
we're going to send you to Siberia.
Yes, yes. And that may have happened to some of Alex's ancestors. We don't know. But we were able to bring him home. He was age 3. He was a Siberian tornado. But he is a great guy.
How old is he now?
Extremely smart. He's 28 and he's working in computers. Brilliant
Awesome.
fellow. So enjoying his work.
Alex, I look forward to meeting you when you're in the neighborhood next.
Yes, yes.
I'd love to meet you. Will you, reading through some of your stuff, you said you had an aha moment in your writing of the book. Was it just because of all the stuff that came together? You like the Lord said, all right,
yes,
here is the perfect time for it all to come together.
I wanted to have a mission for the book other than just writing a novel. So I really wanted to talk about some of the persecution that the Christians faced. And if I was going to leave anything with my readers, I wanted them to know that there was a real persecution. For example, this is true. And so when you're writing historical fiction, you're really putting truth in there as well as the fictional elements. And one of them was that there was this league of militant atheists or, the militant godless.
Right.
So these were people who were commissioned by Stalin to go out and eradicate all forms of religion.
Much like Saul from the Bible.
Pardon?
Like Saul.
Yes. Just kill everybody.
Kill them all.
Kill them all.
Yeah.
And so it was a brutal time. And so over the years, well, actually during World War II, Stalin backed off a little bit from it because he wanted to get the support of the church for the war. But then they went right back to it. And by the time that the 60s and 70s had rolled around, religion or Christianity was for the weak or the mentally ill or the old and elderly. So that was how it was viewed. It was uncool to be a Christian and still is, for that matter, in Russia. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk about that, the fact that persecution really, I haven't talked about it in the book, but persecution still exists today in so many countries.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
So it is crazy. So we think, we've got it so easy here in the United States.
We
just don't realize that that's one of the things.
Yeah, especially when it comes to talking about Jesus. We can do it anytime we want, which we take very for granted, I think.
Absolutely. So, and then the second thing I wanted to talk about was forgiveness.
Yeah.
So there's some things that they have to work through. And I don't know if I could be as strong as my characters are in being forgiving of somebody that would be hurting somebody that I loved. But that's what Christians are facing around the world today. So,
yeah, it's tough. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he said one of his friends, his daughter had gotten murdered by this guy, and he went to court, and he said, he got the opportunity to stand up in court and tell the guy that he had forgiven him, and he was like, I would have told him anything but that, and he said it was just a testament to this guy's faith that he could forgive the guy who did horrible things to her, not just...
That's horrific.
Yeah, it was awful. So yeah, forgiveness. And then, it really is powerful, when you let go of whatever it is you have against someone and you choose to love them. It just breaks down so many walls, and the Lord knew exactly what he was doing when he created forgiveness. So it's really cool. Really cool. What are some other things we can learn to expect from reading your novel? I think you have a few other things.
That's pretty much it. I really wanted to focus on just sort of the characters and the development in there and just some of the challenges that are in there. I had fun with the characters. I really had fun writing this book. That was what made it, really neat. And it gave me the opportunity to say, okay, I've done this. I grew up reading Nancy Drew mysteries and Sherlock Holmes and Hardy Boys and Tom Swift. My brothers had the Hardy Boys and Tom Swift books. So I loved mysteries, loved reading those kinds of things. And so I thought, I've always wanted to write one. Here we go. This is my mystery.
That's fun.
So I'm really thinking now about writing one about Johnson City.
Yeah.
I started it about 5 years ago and then put it aside when this one came up to do. So I've been busy with trying to work on this one, to write it, and then also to market it.
Promote it. Yeah. We want to get it out there.
That was a big thing. But I'm hopeful that I can get back into the Johnson City one. I've written the first few chapters, but it involves a time slip, if you've ever heard of that terminology before. But it's something that a time slip is a jumping back and forth between characters, one who's set in the past and then one who's set in the present.
Same character, just giving perspective.
Different characters, but they have a connection somehow.
Gotcha.
So in this case, I've got a girl who's been called to Johnson City from St. Louis. And so she's going to be introduced to Johnson City in the present. But I've also got somebody from 100 years ago. So what was happening 100 years ago in 1924? Prohibition. And so
I wonder who you might be focusing on.
Yes. Well,
he was a popular character around here.
Yes, talking about Al Capone, obviously. I'll have to come up with somebody fictional because Al Capone is still sort of unproven,
Right.
The legend, the lore, yes, proven, no real hard evidence out there that we know of.
You'll never guess me.
Yes, but the moonshiners, are
those
big
guys
in
were
this
legit.
area.
Yeah.
So that'll be kind of playing into it a little bit, along with things like the VA and ETSU, because those were around that, the tree streets, just some of those little elements, the downtown area, just the things that are in the region, as well as what's going on today.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful to make it a very positive book about Johnson City.
That'd be cool.
Now, the problem with doing that is it just introduces more people to Johnson City.
I know.
And
they keep coming. You guys who are listening, keep coming, which is great. Well, like I said, we love having you. But it's definitely changed in the last 10 years. I feel like significantly. I've been here 40 something years. So 45. And I mean, we used to drive by where we live now, our neighborhood. It used to be, a real strawberry field at Strawberry Field. And then that was just a big field and farmland. And I remember building those houses, and I was like, man, those houses look really nice, Need to live in one of those one day. And then the Lord just kind of shows up one day and you're like, oh, thanks. It's fun how he surprises you. But yes, lots of people are coming, and we're glad to have them. Speaking of coming and going, you've been on some writing pilgrimages, I think. Is that right?
Well, I go every year to one that we have up in the mountains. And I've got a good little group of friends there that are wonderful Christian authors. They're published. They have all different varieties of writing that they do. But it's always been great to just get away and just not have any distractions. Because if I'm working at home, I get little snippets of time, but to sit down and really write something, so I'll be going next month again to that. And then also I have a friend, Mary Ellen Miller. You know Mary Ellen.
Mary. She's been on the podcast.
One of my wonderful friends and prayer partners. And so she and I try to take every year a pilgrimage over to the Cove.
Oh, yeah.
And do these personal spiritual retreats. I can't say enough good about them. They are a great time for you just to get away, get out in the mountains, take some hikes, and have just some personal time with the Lord. So that's always a good thing for me, just to kind of plan for the future and talk to God and just get some things straightened out. That's always good.
That is really good. I haven't been. I keep saying I need to go, but yeah, to have Billy Graham start something that's just continuing to keep going forever, it's just right over the mountain. We should go.
It's a neat place.
Yeah. Did you always want to be a writer growing up?
I would say no, because that was not on my radar. I thought I was going to be a teacher at one point. Then when I wound up getting intrigued by advertising, I decided I wanted to be a copywriter. And I've always had a pretty good verbal thing going. But I can look back at my first grade teacher who asked each of our children, this is first grade now. And I didn't go to kindergarten. I about drove.
You skipped it. You were smart.
I skipped it. Well, I skipped it because I really was able to do some of the things that I would have learned in kindergarten already. So I about drove the teacher nuts the first few weeks because I didn't have any concept of a classroom. But she would say, write a story. This is first grade. You got to write a story. And I would sit there, man, okay, I was just going crazy. And I was writing all this. I'd write a long story. And so it was exciting and it was fun and great. And then later on, you get to high school and college, and you're having to write these papers and they're just dull and boring. And I'm thinking, ooh, the last thing I want to be is a writer.
Yeah.
But my senior year in college, I wound up looking at old Saturday Evening Posts from the 1940s. And that's when I did my research on war-related advertising during the 1940s.
That's cool.
And I just had fun writing about it. And then I had fun writing ads.
Yeah.
And then I had fun writing this book and writing stories. I love writing stories. I think storytelling, being in also in another environment, there's this storytelling resource place down in Jonesboro that's great.
Yeah, International Storytelling Center. Not that one? There's another resource?
There's another one that people need to know about. It's called the Storytelling Resource Place, and it's the little house that's right down below Tennessee Distillery.
Okay, yep.
There's the old salt house, Tennessee Distillery. And then right down below it is an old house, and it's a great resource. They've got library stuff.
That's cool.
In there for storytelling. So
yeah, and then you can get a degree in it here in Johnson City at ETSU. You can get a master's in storytelling.
Yes, and they have also. I'm going to be doing some of my research over there. They've got the Appalachian Archives. Great place to get local history, and that's another thing that's neat. This area is just so full of history. Being settled so early on. And my mom and I were doing Ancestry.com, and found out that some of our ancestors were some of the first settlers here. Bought property from William Bean Jr.
Oh, that's cool.
And so it is cool. So I'm living 2 creeks away from where my 5 great-grandparents lived.
That's awesome.
So isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Didn't know it till we moved up here.
And I'm helping people become landowners, so that's fun too.
There you go.
So there you go. Like it's all coming together. Yeah, so let's talk about, maybe you can give some tips and tricks. Somebody who's like, I've always wanted to write a book. And it seems daunting. What would be your advice to them?
Start writing. Just sit down and start. Just put it all down, and you will look back at it when you finished it and go, ooh, that's got to be changed. And you can do that. But you got to get started. You got to have a game plan. Now, for me, I'm kind of a combination between a planner, what they call a pantser. A pantser is somebody who flies by the seat of their pants when they're writing. I'm sort of in between those. I liken it to getting on a train. You know where you're getting on, you know where you're going to get off. And so you got to start from that premise and then just wait and see what happens along the way, who you're going to meet and so forth. And you can incorporate people into your stories. This is fiction. If you're writing the truth, it's actually much easier to write nonfiction because the truth never changes. But if you're writing fiction, you're telling a lie, and you got to remember what lie you told. And I'll have to go back and go, oh, wait a minute, did I spell Brian Brian or Bryan? But the good thing is you can go back and do it now. But just get it down on paper. Write a story that you think people would want to read.
Yeah.
Or write a story that's really good. So there's just that. What I'm trying to say is write a story about something that's true, which is what I started with this.
Yeah.
And then tried to follow up with it.
Okay. And then when can we expect this Johnson City book out? You want to put it on record now to give yourself a
I wish
soft deadline?
My soft deadline is the first part of next year. So it won't take me long once I have everything mapped out in my brain about what we're doing. The problem for me right now is really developing some of the characters.
Gotcha.
And what they will be like. And there's something called a character arc, which in a good novel of any kind, the character goes through some sort of transformation. So, if you read even nonfiction like J.D. Vance's Hillbilly Elegy, which is really a very good book, his character goes through a transformation in his life, and he tells about that and what he came from and where he is now and so forth. So that's what you want to accomplish in your book. You don't want people to end the book with something discouraging, but something encouraging.
Right. Or some question maybe,
yes,
unless you're going to do a sequel.
Question. Yes.
Yeah. Anything that you've read recently that was just like, this is the best book I've read?
I'm reading Charles Martin right now, but I'm not finished with it, so I don't really know. But one of the best suspense books, and I read it basically to find out about suspense, was called The Last Flight. And it'll knock your socks off.
That's
It's
cool.
really very well written, very suspenseful and so forth, with a lot of little twists and
Does
turns.
it just blow your mind that we're still coming up with new stories, new books?
Yes.
Like it's kind of like, you think it's all been done. Same with movies, right?
Yes.
And now they are remaking a lot of movies
Mhm.
because they don't have great stories. So they're like,
Yes.
oh, we're going to go remake the good ones. But yeah, it just blows my mind how the creativity and just the imagination of people come up with this new idea, new things. It's unbelievable.
Well, we've got the technology now with Amazon. They do the print on demand, okay, which is
Right.
revolutionized the publishing industry.
Because it used to be a huge financial undertaking to get a book printed.
And even still, if you try to go with a major publishing house, there's just a lot of dedication that they have to make. You have to really be a guaranteed good writer, published writer, and so forth, to go with one of the traditional publishing houses. Right now, there are more than 1,000 books uploaded every day to Amazon. So I'm just one little bitty author out here waving my hand saying, hey, I've written a book. Would you like to read my book? And I'm competing with thousands of other people every single day uploading
365,000 books a year.
Yes. And very, 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 very few of them will actually succeed.
Right.
And so it's kind of like trying to record a, top hit.
Or a podcast.
Song. Or a podcast.
Or a podcast and get hundreds of thousands of people to listen to it.
Here's what you're doing, which is very successful. You're being consistent. You're doing frequently. You're podcasting frequently. You are on target. You're an excellent interviewer.
Oh, well, thank you.
So
you're an easy guest.
Well, thank you. But you're an excellent interviewer, and so you're bringing in people. You're positive. You're covering a broad variety of subjects. Okay. So all of those things are moving towards a successful, landing spot there.
That's the hope. Mitch and I hope to make millions of dollars off this one day, right, Mitch? Let's go to the speed round as we're getting ready to wrap up.
Okay.
You and Mark are going to dinner, fancy date.
Mm-hmm.
My son is dating a girl. They have he'll probably kill me for telling you this, but they have a wardrobe status like numbered. It's numbered for fancy being 7 is like black tie.
Okay.
And down to 1. And so let's say you're going business casual, which would be 4-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you guys going to dinner?
Well, we just went Saturday night to Courses down here at Watauga Brewing Company.
And I've heard this is great.
Well, it was excellent.
Yeah.
It was very good. They have a signature dish, which is pork chops, but it's got local peaches on it. And then some of their other, like my daughter got steak when we went there, and it had Mr. Stripey tomatoes with it. So they're fusing Tuscan cuisine right now, just for the summer, with local farm to table veggies.
That's fantastic.
So they're located in the middle floor of Watauga Brewing, which is right across the street on Market Street from the Johnson City Press building.
Yep, right downtown.
So, and we got easy parking around there. I was really surprised.
That is a better place to park than over by Label because you're walking a mile.
Yes. So it was great down there, and the service was delightful. We were there at 5:30 in the evening. It was very quiet. We were going to go upstairs for just to check out the ambiance up there, but we didn't get a chance. So we're going to go back and go up to the rooftop. So I would say right now that was just a very pleasant place to go. And we like gourmet too.
That's awesome.
For fancy.
And then I see you at the club occasionally for brunch. How about coffee? What's your favorite coffee shop? I know you may just be a tea person. I don't know.
I like Still Waters out in Gray. I like several here too. I like Dos Gatos and Open Doors. And I've been to the Moon. I like it. Mm-hmm. Any place where I can get tea, because I'm a tea drinker. And a tea drinker is called a sinensophile. It's a made-up word. But it sounds very fancy. But it sounds fancy. Right up your alley. The Camellia sinensis is the plant that the tea bush, grows from. So I love all varieties of tea. I'll drink everything. I drink copious amounts every day. An entire pot And my teapot came from the Jane Austen Museum in Bath, England. So I feel very fancy when I have my tea.
I was just in Bath. I watched around the Roman bath.
Yes.
So
That was
crazy.
fascinating.
It is fascinating. All right, pizza. Where are you guys going to get a pizza?
I haven't eaten pizza in so long. Okay.
Shame on you.
Well,
Pizza's good for you.
I love pizza, but it doesn't love me. So we've typically in the past gone to Johnny Brusco's. That's been one of our go-to places.
Have you tried Cootie Brown's pizza?
Well, that was my other thing is that I've found that I really like Cootie Brown's, and especially their flatbread type pizzas.
Yes.
So those are very good.
We love that one too. And then let's see, what would be the last one? What do you and Mark like to do for fun when you're not writing books together?
We hike. We love hiking. We love hiking the Appalachian Trail. We'll never, ever be through hikers. I had hoped at one point to do some backpacking along the way, but, it's just too comfortable to come back to our own bed since we're so close and enjoy that. So we get out on different stretches of it, trying to explore other trails and waterfall sites, around the area, because there's just so much in the area. We just recently went up on Holston Mountain and did a little trail up there that takes you up to an abandoned fire tower.
Oh, cool.
I wouldn't want to climb up it because there were stair rungs missing, like 2 or 3 stair rungs missing as you're climbing up. And I'm like, no, I don't think we're going to do that. So
yeah, you'd think the Forest Service would cut off most of the ladders so you can't even start.
But there's so many beautiful hikes around here.
Yeah. It is a beautiful area. And thank you for making it better by being here. What's one thing that I should have asked you that I forgot to? Do you want to share anything? We tried to send your husband internal medicine business.
You asked me about writing. How would I encourage somebody to start writing? And I think that it's important for writers to support each other. And so to find a writers group.
Yeah.
And I've found that.
Is there a local one that you know of, or how would one go about?
We don't have a name, but if anybody wants to get in touch with me and they're a Christian writer, a wannabe author, or they just like writing stories, or they want to write for their church, I just write all across the board on.
How can somebody connect with you?
On my website, they can go to nancycwilliams.com, and there's a little space down at the bottom that they can send message. There's a contact there. Yep, contact us, and so I'll answer it if they'll send me a message.
I love it. Well, thank you for being one of my favorite guests on the podcast. Thank you for bringing me a book, To Love a Falcon. You can find it on Amazon or anywhere books are found. Did you read a copy? Is it on Audible?
I have not. I decided my Southern accent would not sound very good as a Russian.
Not a good German or a Russian.
I can say, I'll tell you this. I can say, Здравствуйте, как проживаете? Я не говорю по-русски, which means, hello, how are you? I don't speak Russian.
Well, you said those words very perfectly.
I learned a few very important words like mороженое. That means ice cream. They eat the best ice cream in Russia.
Ice cream.
So
where are you going to get ice cream locally if you were going to need an ice cream? Have you gone out for ice cream lately?
No, I haven't. Again, for the same reason that it just
doesn't agree with your tummy.
It's just so fattening. But I absolutely love. I'll tell you what my indulgence will be when I get to what I might call my goal weight, and that's Annie Ruth's Donuts. So good.
Yes. Have you been to their new cafe area over here? Like they have a little restaurant.
That's where I'm going to go when I go. But a good place for ice cream is Main Street Cafe.
Main Street Cafe
in Jonesboro.
Mm-hmm. And now there's the Scoop in Gray. It's like an ice cream shop. And then there's in the summers, like right now, on the way to Jonesboro, if you're coming from Johnson City on 11E on the left, just past Classic Title Insurance area, there's a little creamery place there. People say it's really good. It's like a little barn kind of thing. And then there was one other one. Oh,
I'll go to Cookout if I really want a milkshake because they've got all those different flavors. It's fabulous.
I love a good milkshake. We were talking about the Shamrock, I think, last time on the podcast. They make a great milkshake over there. So go there and get a milkshake.
Haven't had one of theirs.
So good. So good. Well, thank you so much for coming
you.
on the podcast.
This was a joy.
I loved getting to know you a little better.
You're one of the nicest, friendliest people in Johnson City, and Johnson City is full of nice, friendly people, you know?
Well, I appreciate the high praise.
very good.
Thank you so much for that. And until next time, I'm Colin Johnson with the Colin and Carly Group. If you want to move here and meet Nancy, I'll introduce you. I know her. And so, if you want to invest in real estate, we help lots of people do that. We manage tons of property for people, help people build wealth. And it's just so much fun helping people get in houses. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And so I'd love to help you guys. So have a great day. And look forward to meeting you.
All right. Thanks.